Well, good day, viewers. Today we have a 2011 Nissan Pathfinder, I believe it is. It's here for a number of electrical problems. Here's the customer's note here. It says the back wiper doesn't work, backup camera doesn't work, rear defrost, light in the back doesn't work sometimes, 4 lighter power ports all don't work, 2 in the front, 1 in the center console, and 1 in the trunk. 2011. I also noticed the airbag warning light on, flashing, and the service engine soon light on. Confirmed that the rear wipers don't work. Finally get the trunk open. So it wouldn't allow me to open the lift gate with the vehicle running. So I suppose we could have some broken wires in here, but that shouldn't theoretically affect this power port here. That should be all by itself. So I think I'm going to put a scanner on here and start out with a network scan of all the controllers and see what codes we have to offer. I see there's a wire hanging here that looks for satellite radio antenna or something. I don't think that has anything to do with our issue. So we'll set up the scanner to do a network scan on this thing. Nissan. Let's try an automatic ID. Well, it should support automatic ID. Keys on. Now Nissans I find are very slow to do a system call or performing a network scan, so let's see when it starts here and then I'll pause the recording. So let's do a code scan. I'm going to put a battery charger on it while it's doing this. So has it finished the network scan? So we got a vent solenoid problem, mass airflow sensor code, manual mode switch circuit up down signal, crash zone sensor communication failure, so it's got a problem with one of the crash sensors, TCS operation signal, VDC operation signal, vehicle speed sensor, ABS, control unit EEPROM, clutch pressure, CAN communication circuit, tire pressure sensors. Well, we got a number of issues, but nothing related to the concerns the customer mentioned. So I'm going to do some investigating of the wiring diagrams here and look at fuses to start with. So I decided to look at the rear wiper circuit first of all, and it looks like there's 2 fuses involved. Fuse 15 behind the right end of the dash, and fuse 1. Fuse 1 is an input to the BCM. Now I just scanned it, and I don't know if the BCM responded. Body control module. I wonder if we can see the intelligent key. Let's see if it's BCM identification. Intelligent key will have a push button or turn style ignition switch, neither of which require the use of a key. Okay, so this does have the intelligent key. Let's look at codes in the BCM one more time. No data FL. No data front right. No data rear right. That might be tire pressure sensors. Yeah, that's probably tire pressure sensors. Let's look at data and see if we can see the accessories. Oh boy. OEM equipment may vary. Headlamp, wiper. Let's look at wipers, see if we can see the status of the rear wiper switch. Front wiper, rear wiper on. rear wiper, rear wash. So I'm going to operate the switch. So it appears that the command is there, but the wiper is not responding, so I don't think we need to check those fuses in that circuit because that 10 amp fuse is an input to the switch, and it probably uses that 10 amp fuse, this one here, for the front wiper because that's all part of the same turn stock or stock switch. So let's have a look at these. There's a wiper motor. There's the ground on the D pillar. And then the power rear wiper motor output. I'm going to investigate the others problems. So I'm looking at the rear window defogger, and it has a relay either internal in the intelligent power distribution module in the engine room, right rear engine compartment. So that relay has power from fuse 46 and 47, two 15 amp fuses in parallel, so we can check those. And it's controlled by the electronics. It's got power to the control side of the relay from an ignition switch source. Doesn't say where exactly. And it's ground side controlled by the electronics. And it's networked to the HVAC control assemblies. And that rear defogger switch turns, or rear defogger relay turns on the grid. So I think first and foremost we'll check these fuses 46 and 47. So I believe fuse 46 is this one and 47 is this one. They're numbered right on the... No, that's 15 and 17. Using the camera as a magnifying glass. But those fuses are good. I tested all the 15 amp fuses and they all seem good. Now this Underhood Electrical Center here just shows these relays here and fuses. It doesn't show you those ones, and this legend doesn't go up to fuse 47, it goes to fuse 24. But nevertheless, if I turn the rear defogger on, I noticed that one of the wires from the relay that goes to the rear defogger, let's zoom back out here and press the rear defogger button. It says, it lights up the indicator and it says rear defogger on, so I think we're chasing an open. I'm going to check those wires at that hinge. So according to the schematic, it's a gray wire feeding you this until it comes to this connector, and then it switches to black and black. So I'm looking at these wiring harnesses up in here. There's a heavy gray wire there. It doesn't appear to be broken, but it's taped. Somebody's been here already looking at this because this grommet wasn't installed correctly. So that gray wire is not broken in there. I don't see any broken wires in there. Let's see what color the wires are for the orange and white and red. Here's a red one. That one's okay. There's several white ones here. White one. Orange. So, but there's another harness on this side. So I'm going to take this one apart and have a look inside it. So this looks like the windshield washer hose pipe, and these are too small to be for the power or for the rear grid lines. Can't see anything physically wrong with the connections. I don't want to touch them. So let's see if this connector is accessible. D4, is that in this diagram as well? D408, D409, 402. So I decided to check for power here. And on the left hand side with the rear defogger on, I have power on that side of the grid. And I don't have power on this side. Let's try touching one of these grid lines. The grid lines are broken. Something scratched the glass. This thing needs a rear window. If it lights up, that means there's no ground. It should get progressively dimmer. That's the problem with these grid lines on the glass. And it's scratched off. Okay, so that's problem is solved. It needs a rear glass because you got power here. Several of these lines are broken. Any line that lights up bright like that is broken downstream from that test point. Because if I put the test light in the middle, if this thing were working, I should be dim, and it's not. I don't think any of these lines work. That's the trouble with a hatchback or a SUV. If you're not careful and you have something rubbing against the back glass, it'll break the line or rub it off. Right there. There's a break there. Every one of these lines is rubbed off. Okay, so that's solved. That explains the rear defogger, but it doesn't explain the rear wiper. Let's look at that circuit now. So the rear wiper may not function with the tailgate open. That's common controls. We know we don't have any broken wires in here, so I'm putting these grommets back together. And I'm going to close the hatch, or trip the latch. That's what I'll do. I'll trip the latch so it thinks that the hatch is closed. Now, let's see what it says about the status of the rear wiper on the stand tool. So I have the rear wiper switch on. I'm not sure if that's the status of the switch or if that's the status of the wiper. Well, that means we should have power to this orange wire. No, sorry, power to the white wire and ground on the red wire. at the left D pillar. So I removed the cover off the wiper motor here, and there's a 3-wire plug. The white wire is power when the wiper is on, the red wire is ground. I've got a test light connected across it, and it's not lighting up. So then I decided to connect power and ground to an external battery over there, and we get a faint spark, but the wiper motor doesn't respond. So the white wire is positive. I'm thinking that the BCM might have shut down the wiper because of a short. I'm going to cycle the key, and I've got and that shows that circuit open. I don't know when. That's the park switch. So it might be closed when it parks, and that might signal the wiper motor to, or the wiper to shut off. The wiper is obviously not parked right now. That should be down here, I think. I got the latch closed to simulate that the tailgate is closed, but I'm not sure. When I touch battery power to this thing, there is a spark there, but the wiper motor doesn't move, so it's either seized. I'm going to cycle the key and see if that returns the operation of it. So I've turned the key on and off and back on again. Now I'm going to turn the wiper switch on. Initially it turned on. Cycle the key off. So this circuit is working. It needs a wiper motor. I'm not sure 100% how the park switch works, but when I put direct power to the power and ground wire on the wiper motor, it doesn't run. So it needs a wiper motor. And I think the computer is shutting down the circuit because it sees the incorrect current flow. This 700 milliamp light bulb should be lit. I'm going to see if there's a voltage on that wire, on that orange wire, because it's a switch, so it's got to be a pull down circuit. So I'm going to probe that orange wire with the key on for a voltage. And I got 13 volts on that wire. So that switch pulls it to ground. Let's momentarily ground it and see if that simulates a wiper that's not parked, because an open circuit might be a parked wiper. So I'm going to ground it through a test light. We got to get a probe. So I'm going to ground this orange wire through a test light. And it doesn't turn it on. So maybe once it's already parked, it won't turn on again. But if I turn the wiper switch on and off, the wiper theoretically runs. So I'm not sure how that park switch works, but there's a voltage potential there that's pulled to ground by the switch in the motor. And when I grounded it through a test light, it didn't respond. Let's try one more time. No. Well, I know it needs a motor because I put direct power and ground to it. It doesn't run, so. Second problem. Third problem is these power ports. Let's see where the power comes from for those. So I did a search at the local parts stores for this rear wiper motor, and it's not available anytime soon. Part number 434344 is available from Cardone, and I'm going to recommend the customer order it themselves from Rock Auto. It's like $100 cheaper than buying it locally, actually more than $100, almost $150 cheaper. My only concern is this wiper arm might not come off of here. Oftentimes they seize on the shaft. Yeah, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So the power sockets, as they're referred to, formerly known as cigarette lighter sockets. There's a rear cargo one and the left front power socket come from fuse 26. They're live all the time. And the other two, the console power socket and the upper front power socket, are only live with the key on. Three of them share the same ground, M79, but the one in the back has its own ground, B132. So if they're all not working, there would have to be multiple problems. Go figure. So far it's been multiple problems. So let's check these fuses. Where is this fuse 26 and fuse 5? There's a fuse box on the right hand side here by the glove box, and the fifth fuse up from the bottom, focus, is called power socket console, and the key is on and the ignition is on right now, and that's this 20 amp fuse right here. And it's good. Sorry, you're not being able to see that. So that feeds the console plug. I just opened my door. No power in there. But that doesn't explain the other one. Is this the other one here? Gotta get a test probe. So what's common? Lower front socket. Don't know what that one's called. I cut it off when I printed it. They come from the other fuse, so this one here comes from this fuse. So I tested all the fuses that I could find, and every fuse tests good. I couldn't find this specific fuse. I think it's in the distribution center under the hood, but every fuse is good in there. No fuse is missing that I can see. So I'm searching for connector M63, M204. I'm thinking there's more than one problem here, because two of the console plugs are battery power and two of them are key switch power, and three of them share a common ground, but I'm checking for power at the plugs. These three plugs that got no power. So either we have multiple issues, well, we must have multiple issues. So I've found a diagram showing the harness. So I'm gonna figure out which one and where these connectors are. So there's a component view of those connectors, M31 right there, which is also E152, male and female. The harness comes from the engine room, so that's in the right front corner behind the glove box, and this one's under the console, M63, and M204 is the other mating half. And I've got the connector views. M63 is the one under the console, is a small connector. I think I'm going to go for this one here. There's two plugs in the right side of the dash. Beside the left side of the glove box, there's an upper and lower one. One's live all the time and one's key switch. Both of them are dead. So we're going to see if we can find this connector. And we're looking for specifically, that was M31. Looking for, the wire color is not shown here. Wonderful. Isn't that special? Well, keep going. So I removed the glove box and the trim here. There's a plastic piece on the right side you have to pry off. There's 3 clips on it. 1, 2, 3. And then the glove box pops out by prying it inboard and releasing the tabs. There's a little cable on the back. Then there's 5 screws that hold this plastic trim around the glove box. And we're looking for M31, which is a great big connector. It's that one there, M31. And according to the information, it's behind the glove box here, in this area here. And I don't see anything obvious unless it's up high. So it's actually M36 here, which is this one down here, which I'm sure is this connector right here. That one comes in from the engine room harness and goes up. Here it says M31. Oh, M31, M36, B149. Well, it's a red wire according to that we're looking for. It's in location 10M. So I just went to the back of this lower plug and there's power there. I'm going to check the ground on it. But when I went into the bottom of the plug, and there's a battery charger on here, it's not working. Oh boy. So that's the lower socket. That one's live all the time. That comes from the battery. The upper socket is key switched. I'm going to check that one too. Maybe there's just a problem with these sockets. Maybe they melt or something internally. So that's the lower one. And I don't think that one shuts off with the key. Turning the key off. Still on. So there's power and ground to that socket. There's something wrong inside the damn socket. Because I tested for power in there with a test light and I had no power. Let's check the upper one. So there's the upper one. And that one goes off with the key. So what's going on with these sockets? That one in the console shuts off with the key, so when this one's on, the one in the console should be on. And it's not, unless I'm not making a connection in there. Doesn't look bad. I'm going to plug these sockets back in. So now I'm checking the upper socket again, and it's live now. All I did was plug it back in, but the bottom one's not, and it's plugged back in and the key is on. Actually, that one's live all the time. So there's something wrong with the socket itself. This one's working now. Let's try plugging that charger in. Yeah, it's lit up. Now that one's key switched. Let's see if it'll support a significant load. Go figure. So we got 3 failed sockets. The upper one with the ignition switch circuit is working now and lights this 800 milliamp bulb. They don't look melted or anything. Or at least I know how they come out. There's like a little clip on them. They pry out. Okay, well, we'll put this back together now. So after reinstalling this plug-in, see it lights up. It's power and ground. So I don't know. It's a bad connection on the back of that plug, so I think all 3 of them were compromised in the same manner. I'm going to have to look and see if that's common. But that's really interesting that we would have 4 different problems that seem to be related. My mistake is not asking the customer if everything happened at the same time. I kind of assumed that because they were complaining about everything at the same time that they all failed simultaneously, but I'm going to ask them now. Hindsight's 20/20. So it needs a wiper motor, rear window glass, and 3 or 4 plug sockets. So you can pry the plug-in out and you can see I got power and ground there, yet I had no power at that plug, and yet it looks pristine. Like, it doesn't look like anything spilled in it. It's got to be a bad crimp or something. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing works again after I plug it in. Maybe that terminal inside there is, that rivet is a bad crimp or something. Because I had no power. It wasn't a ground issue. I had a separate ground. So I got the customer's little air compressor plugged in there now. After plugging it in, down to a little air compressor. Can you imagine that? There was no power at that plug. There was no power at the back one, and it works now. But I can't guarantee how long it's going to stay working. I suppose if I could pry out the lower one from the dash, maybe I could get it to work by cycling the plug. But I plugged it in and out a couple of times and it didn't make any difference. So I pried the last remaining one out of the dash. It just pops out of the dash, little clips on it. And if you look at that terminal, it's melted. So the rivet has lost its tension. You can see the contact in there. So I'm going to recommend they get, I think the rear one's different, but I'm not 100% certain of it. But the other 3 are the same. Buy new ones. So the last problem is the backup camera. So I suspect the backup camera has failed. I've already checked the wiring to it. But when you put it in reverse, the display switches to the backup camera, but it's black. So usually what happens is moisture gets inside these cameras and attacks the printed circuit. So I'm going to say it probably needs a backup camera.